really an honor to be here. It's great to see all of you come out on a weeknight. That's pretty bold. So it's great to be here, and it's an honor, delight, privilege. Thank you. So we came to the farm. I was raised on a farm there in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, which was a gullied rock pile in 1961 when our family moved there. And I remember being able to walk the whole place, never set foot on a piece of grass. It was that much bare ground. You thought we were raising thistles and ragweed and devil's shoestring and wild strawberries and broom sedge, for a crop. It was 550 acres. 160 was open. Then we reforested 60 of them, dropped it down to 100 acres because we were reforesting hillsides that were like corrugated roofing of gullies. Gullies were 16 feet deep, 14 feet deep, just like corrugated roofing on the sides of the hills. I always wondered what those farmers were thinking, when they saw those gullies develop, but they just kept plowing and taking the money and putting it in the offering plate for the mission project down to Presbyterian Church. And it really bothers me, that we've been doing that. So we came, and Dad was an accountant, Mom was a school teacher, and for the first 12 years, every penny we got went into the mortgage. Finally got it paid off in the early 70s. By that time, I'm I'm 8th grade or so, and up until that time, we'd pretty much run it as a glorified homestead. It was we dropped it down, like I said, to about 100 acres and of open land and 450 in woodland, and I always milked a couple cows and did those sorts of things. And the whole question was, how does nature work? And we started looking around at natural principles and realized it's actually fairly simple. It's not as complicated as we think. First of all, animals move. We live in a culture that doesn't think animals should move. And we should lock them up in, feedlots and factory farms, and they don't need to move anywhere. Well, as soon as you posit that animals move, well, now you have to have portable fencing, portable water systems, portable shelter, portable feeding systems, right? Because they're going to move. And so a lot of people think, oh man, you're really clever, all these things you designed. No, they just naturally grew out of a basic understanding that animals move. It's that simple. We noticed that nature doesn't bring in fertility from outside. Nature manufactures fertility from inside. This idea that we got to bring in bags of material to maintain fertility from out there somewhere is just not the way nature works. Nature doesn't move carbon very far. Grass falls over where it grows, or it gets eaten by an herbivore, and she poops it out only as far as she can walk from the space. Birds eat seeds, and they go up in the tree and poop out the seeds, and not that far from where they ate it. And leaves fall off the tree, but they don't blow into the across the ocean. They stay kind of where they were. And so the whole fertility carbon cycle, the carbon economy stays pretty much in situ. Nature's primarily perennials, very few annuals. So even though our farm had been plowed for 200 years, and in fact we had so little soil that when Dad started with electric fencing, he started developing an electric fencing system to move the cows around in the early 60s. We didn't have enough soil to hold up electric fence stakes. Remember, our farm was abused for about 120 years before before the Europeans started coming and abusing North Dakota. So we had a head start on you guys. And there's an old Chinese proverb that says, if you keep going the way you're going, you're going to end up where you're headed. And so, if you keep going the way you're going, you'll probably end up where we ended up. Nature's primarily perennials. There are very few annuals. So we went to perennials. We just, didn't plant anything and just let whatever was in the side ditches begin to grow, and let whatever the seed bank was in the fields start to grow. And then we noticed, landscapes are very diverse. You don't just see, square miles of monoculture. You see creeks and streams and ponds and trees and open ground and riparian and marsh, and it's a very diversified landscape. So we began building ponds. We began building trees, planting trees, and bringing forestal zones out into the open land, create more edge effect. That changed the way the wind moved. It changed the way the water flowed. It changed the hydrology, all those kinds of things. And then we noticed, nature's very relationally complex and complementary. There's a symbiosis in nature among this complex relational stuff. Nature doesn't say in this, square mile we're going to grow this. No, it grows a lot of different things. The original prairie, I'm told, had as many as 50 to 60 species of plants per acre. It was that diverse. In fact, Alan Nation, founder of Stockman Grass Farmer, used to say it takes 100 years after one plowing for all the native species to come back into native prairie. That's how profound plowing is. And so we started, encouraging complex relationships. So we started running egg mobiles behind the cows so that to mimic the egret on the rhino's nose, and the chickens scratch through the cow patties, incorporate it into the soil, eat the fly larvae out, so now we didn't have to use ivermectin for the cows or any parasiticides or grubicides. And we got eggs as a byproduct of the pasture sanitation program. We began raising, permaculture style stacking, rabbits, and we got chickens under the rabbits. The rabbits drop, the chickens keep the composting going. We began doing large scale composting with pigs instead of turning it with, machinery and petroleum. We just put corn in it, let the corn ferment in the bedding pack we call it a carbonaceous diaper in the winter. And it gets 4 feet deep, anaerobic. The pigs then go in, seek the fermented corn, and churn it like a big egg beater, turn it to aerobic, and that's the guts of our fertility program. The pigs do the work. So there's this very complex relational complementarity, within the farm animal and plant community. And then we noticed that in nature, the foundations of the food system in all cultures is primarily local or regional. Now, there's always been a trade in spices, from afar. There's been, exotics, seafoods from the beach to go to the interior, and, salt and things like that. But generally speaking, throughout history, food commerce, the basic foundation of a region, is generally regional. The crux of it. And so we began direct marketing. And instead, can we establish a brand? Can we actually, wear all the middleman hats? The middleman makes all the money. Well, if that's where the money is, sign me up. I want to be one. And so we began direct marketing to neighbors, friends, people at church, people we, worked with, people we knew in the community, and trying to develop a brand persona there within the community. And then we noticed that plants and animals fill different niches. They fill different niches and habitats. And so can we provide places for these plants and animals to fully express their phenotypical expression? And the pigness of the pig, the chickenness of the chicken. And what we found was that as we began doing that, they became more and more healthy. They filled better niches, and they actually tasted better. A happy pig tastes better than a sad pig. And I think that in our culture right now, we're doing a lot of violence to the ecology. We're doing a lot of violence to our animals, our plants. We come to them with a violent perspective. And is it any wonder that we've become a violent culture as we've treated our soil, our commons, our water, and our air from a violent perspective? And so as we began implementing these ideas with portable infrastructure, portable everything, things started to happen. We went from where we could only grow 10 or 15 cows to where we had 100 cows on the same acreage. And so today, what we grow today is we have beef, pork, chicken, turkey, rabbit, duck eggs, chicken eggs, and we service lots of people and don't sell anything wholesale. Probably the neatest thing that we're growing now are young farmers, germinating young farmers. And so we run a formal apprenticeship and stewardship program to generate young farmers and turn them out. And it's taken as much innovation and energy to be able to germinate these young farmers as it did to germinate the procedures that attract them to the farm in the first place. But it's very exciting to see these young farmers, yes. And we are averaging 1.5 marriages a year, so that's a new perk, for coming. So during this time, the ecology of the farm began to change. And that ecology, as Dan pointed out, the beautiful thing is we've got this notion that to be ecologically correct, you have to sacrifice the economy. Or in order to be economically correct, you've got to sacrifice the ecology. You kind of have this mentality. And what's exciting, what Dan's found and what we've found is that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have ecological healing and economic healing. And one gauge of that has been that in the 60 years we've been there, our organic matter has gone from 1% to 8.2% on average. Now remember, we had over 100 years of conquistador European abuse prior to the same thing happening here in the Dakotas. So you go down the road 100 years from now, and I look at these soils around here and just drool, because wow, those rich black soils, you haven't destroyed them yet. So the result is, here's the beautiful thing for you all, is that here, since you're not so depleted like we were, your starting point out of the gate, as you start making changes, your starting point, you can get to healing way faster than us, because you've only got one broken leg. We had 2 broken legs and 2 broken arms. Are you with me? And so a lot of times the trajectory or the rapidity with which you can redeem land and redeem the ecology is in direct relationship to the starting point. And the greater your deficit at start, right, the longer it takes. That's why actually some of the starting recipes might change, in different places. So when you think about that organic matter, think about this. Every 1% change in organic matter is equivalent to 20,000 gallons of water. Retentive capacity, organic matter, 1 pound holds 4 pounds of water. It's real spongy, soft, and so it's absorptive. And so every 1% organic matter increase equals an additional 20,000 gallons of water per acre that your land can hold. So we've gone 7 clicks from 1% to 8.2. 7 clicks, 7 times 20,000 is 140,000 gallons of water per acre that we can now hold that we couldn't hold in 1961. Now you multiply that by 100 or 200 acres, and it starts. It's kind of like the junior senator that went to Washington and found out that they said, "Man, alive, we went in there and we spent $50 million on this and put a bill in for $1 billion on this and $200 million on that, and it adds up into real money after a while." And same thing is true with this organic matter. You add 140,000 gallons per acre, and it really adds up. We've built 15 ponds, I guess, to where now we can irrigate. We don't believe in irrigating from aquifers or irrigating from streams, because that's the commons. That's everybody's water. That's God's water. You can't deplete that. If everybody sticks a straw in an aquifer or sticks a straw in a river and starts pumping, then pretty soon, or sucking, then there's no water left. But a surface pond that catches surface water, P.A. Yeomans, who wrote Water for Every Farm, he was the Australian guru that developed the keyline system. He said every farm should aspire to eliminate surface runoff and never end a drought with a full pond. So once there's surface runoff, by definition, that means the commons is full. If you're having surface runoff, that means the commons is full. It's either coming too fast to in-soak, or there's too much that's already saturated and you can't in-soak anymore. By collecting that in a pond for strategic distribution in a drought, suddenly you can create tremendous resilience in your place. And in the big picture, you're actually increasing the commons. It should give us all pause to realize that 500 years ago, North America was 8% surface water 8% today, we're less than 4%, even with the big lakes and man-made Army Corps projects and Hoover Dam and Boulder and TVA lakes and all the stuff. We are less than half of the water that we had in North America 500 years ago. And of course, everybody knows where that water came from. Beavers. 200 million beavers, and we've dug up carcasses now that we know some of those beavers were as big as a Volkswagen automobile. So they could make some pretty big ponds. So we don't have the beavers now. We don't have, and we don't have that sort of thing anymore. What we do have is excavation equipment to be able to build ponds to catch surface runoff for strategic distribution later. Fertility production is up 10 times, not 10%, 10 times the fertility up. And young people are attracted to this, desperate to get in. While in average farming, people can't figure out how to get young people interested, we're finding young people excited to get in. We think that the door of opportunity for young people to come into this kind of agriculture, if they can actually make a good living at it, there are lots of young people who would love to get into farming, but nobody encourages them to do it. Even many farmers encourage their kids not to go into farming, and that's a tragedy. And so this successional thing is, I think, as big as, if we're going to have soil succession, we need to have farmer succession. And so now there are, 20 to 25 people earning a salary. We lease 14 nearby properties, practicing these properties on them. So what about the future? So where's the food system going in the future? Have just a couple points. One is we think that the distribution is really changing. And I know when I come to places like the Dakotas, you can produce more than your state can eat because the population is not very dense. Now, the first line of defense, in my opinion, is to service your neighbors. And North Dakota is just like almost every other state of the union. Only 10% of the food eaten locally is grown locally. McDonald's doesn't buy local beef. And so you've got a lot of opportunity to feed yourself. That's true. But you probably are like Australia in that the population is so undense that you've got to go elsewhere. Fortunately, with the distribution protocols we have now, we can actually, the cost of shipping is now way lower than it was compared to the cost of aggregating in physical structures like Walmart and supermarkets. And so that disparity in between distribution and physical aggregation, to where now we can aggregate electronically and use shopping carts and efficient distribution, is quite astounding. You know that FedEx and UPS now has software in their trucks that can plug in their route for the day, and it keeps them from making any left-hand turns. In the urban sector, that has dropped 30% of their fuel costs, just that one thing. So now MIT's doing carbon footprint studies and realizing that a physical amalgamation at Walmart, where you go and buy there, or nobody here I'm sure goes to Walmart, but if somebody does go to Walmart and buy, all those people sitting in that left-hand turn lane is actually way more of a carbon footprint in food distribution than if all that were put on a UPS truck and came to your doorstep. I mean, that is a moving place in the marketplace, and for rural places like this, and I'm empathetic. Look, I mean, I live 8 hours from half the U.S. population. I get it. All right. So when I go here, or Wyoming or Idaho, and you're 200 miles from a Coke machine, that's a different direct marketing kind of system. And this distribution technology is fundamentally changing the game for people that are in a very rural place. It's a very exciting time to be alive. The homesteading self-reliance movement is a tsunami right now. There are people moving out of the urban sector. Maybe you guys don't see it very much, but I can tell you Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, there is a tsunami of people moving out of the urban sector. There's a fluttering in the country. There's an intuitive awareness that we are in kind of unsettled, weird times. I mean, everybody I meet now says, "How do I disentangle from the system?" Everybody's wanting to get out. There's an intuitive understanding that if things go down, I don't want to be stuck in a condo in Manhattan. And so there is a desire for self-reliance. This is creating what I call food clusters. These are communities of food clusters now developing in the rural areas. And you can call them an agrarian bunker, you can call them havens, whatever you want to call them. But there are communities developing in which there's enough eclectic understanding to have somebody who knows how to grow things, somebody who knows how to fix things, and somebody who knows how to build things. And if you're in a community and you've got skill sets, mastery over growing things, building things, and fixing things, you are in a resilient situation. In fact, somebody has just tracked Parliament in the UK. Amazing things that they track. And they track the use of the word resilient versus the use of the word efficient over the last 5 years in the British Parliament. And they found out that the use of the word efficient has dropped by 300%, and the use of the word resilience has increased by 200%. That's an amazing shift in language. Think about that. That's a shift in language, in messaging in the UK Parliament. In other words, it used to be everything was about efficient. We need to be efficient. We need to be efficient. Now, guess what they're interested in? Resilience. And so the future of food is going to be food systems that are keyed in on a home larder. We're going to see larders develop. We're going to see people wanting to store more food, buy more volume, keep it at home and not have it down at the Costco warehouse. We're going to see systems that are less susceptible to drought, less susceptible to tax problems, less susceptible to control and things like that. And we're going to see a huge movement toward health as we move past as we move into this health crisis that we have. I mean, in the last 40 years, we've inverted the 18% that we used to spend on food and 9% on health care. We've now inverted that in the last 40 years to 9% on food, 18% on health care. And so as these costs of health care begin to escalate, the value of food and the kind of thing that Dan's doing, the kind of things that Mark's doing, these kind of understandings of the reality that a bushel is not just a bushel and a pound is not just a pound. The differentiation in the marketplace between what's good and what's not as good, that is going to become a seminal differentiation in the marketplace, and we will be rewarded for that higher quality food. We just participated in a study with 11 other farms raising pastured eggs in America. The USDA official nutrition label on a dozen eggs, if you get it in the store, I'll just pick one, folic acid. It's really important for pregnant women. Folic acid, the USDA labels 48 micrograms per egg. Our eggs from our farm averaged 1,038 micrograms per egg. Folks, we're not talking about little variations. We're talking about exponential, multiplicative differences. The same thing that Dan's finding out as he starts looking at his nutrition. So the future is exciting as this awareness, as the empirical science starts catching up with some of our intuitive, natural pattern kind of work that we've been doing. We follow nature, and it's wonderful to watch empirical science, we could say, either catch up or affirm the kind of things we've seen as we've studied nature and duplicated their patterns on a domestic scale. The future is bright for those of us willing to embrace these heritage natural patterns, duplicate them on a domestic scale, use them on our farms, bring our soil fertility up, and minister as places of hope when there's hopelessness, and help when there's helplessness in our communities and neighborhoods. God help us to do it. Thank you.